Namaskara, good afternoon, everybody. I am Shweta Kurada, and I'm a member of C4C, your host for the 11th episode of C4C Conversations. And I want to welcome all of you to this program. Thank you for waiting, which is aptly about COVID 19 and children. Last year, the first wave hit all of us, and it mostly impacted the elderly. This year, we have seen that the younger people are being affected in large numbers. And now the question on everybody's mind is, will there be a third wave, and when will it be? We believe that to a large extent, this depends on how we conduct ourselves in terms of COVID behavior protocol, like maintaining social distance, wearing masks, washing hands, etc. Another question worrying many of us is will the third wave impact our children? Will they be affected? Because that is what everybody's saying. Because children so far have been largely unaffected by COVID-19 compared to adults. So today's program will address this topic and about COVID-19 and children and how we should be prepared for the same. As usual, before we start on today's topic, I would like the founder and convener, Rajkumar Dugal, to please give us a brief overview of C4C's activities. So over to you, Raj. Thank you.
Thanks, Shweta. C4C ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. In tune with the present times, it is very important for us to understand about COVID and children so as to be better prepared to take care of the little ones. And I must say that there is no one better than Dr. Arvind Shenoy to talk to us about this subject. Let me add that Dr. Shenoy is an extremely busy doctor, and I was pleasantly surprised when he readily agreed to spend time with us today after I explained briefly to him regarding C4C. Citizens for Citizens, or C4C, was started just over 2 years ago as a platform of passionate citizens of Bengaluru whose aim is to leave our surroundings a little better than we found it. Our focus has been on subjects like traffic, public transport, afforestation, and various civic issues. We work closely with different government departments, and I confidently state that C4C has already made a difference to the quality of life in Nama Bengaluru, maybe in a small, but definitely in a significant manner. In the last 15 months, C4C has worked actively in facing the COVID pandemic situation by taking up various projects, including facilitation of physical distancing, handing over thousands of masks, dry ration kits to identified needy people, helping elderly people at their doorstep, taking care of small and vulnerable plants during lockdowns, sharing authenticated information related to COVID, facilitating vaccination of marginalized sections of society, blood donation camp, and so on. Last Wednesday, 16th June, we had our previous episode of C4C Conversations with Dr. Bhujang Shetty, and I had given updates of C4C activities until then. Well, after that, on 18 June, C4C organized Masking the Unmasked campaign. Hotel Shangri-La and High Grounds Law and Order Police and BBMP Marshal accompanied us through the high footfall streets of Vasant Nagar with placards in our hands carrying messages related to COVID appropriate behavior. We took almost an hour covering 2.5 kilometers, during which we handed over C4C N95 masks to about 60 persons we found without masks. Also, we handed over a second lot of dry ration kits this year to identified needy people earlier this week. We had on-site discussions with Smart City and traffic police officials on Monday at Palace Road near Sophia High School and ensured better pedestrian facility than what was being implemented by persuading the officials for certain changes. This is a continuous process, and we are confident the end result, at least in the Smart City roads where we have intervened, will be far better than what would have been otherwise. Well, at C4C, something or the other keeps happening almost every single day. Apart from this program today on our Koti Vriksha Sainya platform, we were approached by Southwestern Railways to plant trees at the newly built Sir M. Vishweshwaraya Railway Terminal, which awaits inauguration and which is said to be one of India's best railway stations. We have already done good tree planting on railway land provided to us at Yashwantpura and Chanasandra. Last week, we submitted our tree planting proposal for this Sir MV terminal, which includes an eco theme park with about 270 trees. And in the middle of this theme park, we will grow a dense urban forest of about 2,000 trees. I'm happy to share that today, as we speak here now, I have been informed that the formal approval from Railways to go ahead with this tree planting work is being prepared. This is a brief overview of C4C along with updates about the activities of C4C during the last 1 week. With today's C4C program, despite a couple of months when we could not have this program for various reasons, I am glad that we are completing 11 programs in 11 months. With this, I now request Shweta, our host today, to take over and to take the program forward. Dhanyawad.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj, for that brief update about C4C. Now, I have the honor to introduce our speaker. In fact, it is truly an honor for me personally, because as a young mother, I had taken my baby to him when he was about 3 months old. And after my interaction with him, I was really thrilled to be here as the host and to introduce Dr. Arvind Shenoy. He is the Chief Neonatologist and Medical Director at the very well-known Cloud9 Hospital. He is also a Senate member at the RGUHS. And on account of his immense work experience with children's health-related matters, he's also the chairman of the Child Health Subcommittee of the State Vision Group of Government of Karnataka. In addition, Dr. Shenoy is the executive board member of 2019-20 of the National Neonatology Forum of India. He was earlier the professor of pediatrics at the Manipal University and the head of department of pediatrics at the Manipal Hospital itself. Now, with these and many other credentials to his credit, which I cannot go into now, we are indeed very happy that he has taken time off his busy schedule and the technical glitch which delayed it even more. But thank you, Dr. Shenoy, and we are eager to listen to the various aspects of COVID-19 vis-a-vis children. I also learned that Dr. Shenoy loves to travel, and he has in fact traveled to all the 7 continents. And I also learned that his wife is the very well-known Dr. Praveena Shenoy, who also is an OBGYN at the Cloud9 Hospital. Quickly, let me add that a pediatrician is a truly special doctor, unlike other doctors, because the pediatrician's patients cannot communicate verbally with him. In addition to treating his patients, he needs to understand and take care of the natural and sometimes exaggerated anxiety of parents, which I can personally attest to. And in today's situation, I am sure that Dr. Shenoy's inputs will help us prepare ourselves better and succeed in protecting our children. So I now request Dr. Shenoy to address today's topic. Over to you, Dr. Shenoy. Thank you.
Elrigu namaskara. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Rajkumarji. I think it is an immense pleasure for me to be on this forum, and thank you for inviting me here. The technical glitch only told the main message of today's talk. No matter what the problem is, if we work together, we can overcome it. Thodi der hai, but there is no andher. So thank you so much, whoever did the technical glitch. You have conveyed the main message of today's talk. Corona is here. We know it is a bad illness, but together we can fight it. And with that, I'd like to start my presentation. So as you probably, all of us probably have only one thought, and especially parents, about this so-called COVID, this dangerous virus, what it can do to us, what can it do to our children. And it is but natural to have anxiety. And Shweta brought out so many points about a parent feeling so many things when it comes to our little one in face of what seems to be a very daunting illness. So probably the best way to handle it is to go back to Panchatantra. Many of you probably know it and have heard of it. And those who haven't will probably recall now that there is the tale of 3 fishes. As a pediatrician, I feel the stories tell us more lessons than, you know, boring lectures. So I'll just tell the story of these three fishes. Those of you who have read about it will bear with me. Now the story goes like this, that one day these fishes in this small lake overheard two fishermen passing by saying, "Oh, this lake seems full of fishes. Tomorrow we'll put our net and we'll catch all of them." Now, three fishes heard this, and then they said, the first one said, "Look, there is oncoming danger. We need to prepare for it. So let us go and hide somewhere so that we don't get caught in the net." The second fish seemed to think over this and said, "I agreed with the first fish." But the third fish said, "Oh, we cannot help it. This is our fate. Whatever comes is my fate. I'll wait and see." And lo and behold, as many of you know, in this story, the fisherman came back and put the net, dragged away three fish, the third fish and his friends. So the moral of the story, as was told in Panchatantra, is that when you have an oncoming danger, or you know about a danger, you need to prepare for it. And that is what we should do as with regard to this virus called as COVID. Just a word, if you have to talk about this enemy, we need to understand the enemy. So these are what are called as coronaviruses. These are a large family of viruses. And it's not so new, even though it was called as novel coronavirus. It has been around for probably many, many centuries as an infection usually in animals. Coronaviruses are also known, but not this one, but other of this family are also known to infect dogs. And some of them also cause mild illnesses in humans. But this particular virus has been very dangerous because of certain properties. Now, what you need to know is, let us look at this diagram of the coronavirus. And if you see the red bulbs on top, you can see these are called as the spike proteins. There are three proteins in the virus. The first one is the bulbs on top called as the spike one. The second is the smaller ones, which are called as the envelope proteins. And then the ring, which is the membrane protein, which holds these. Why is this important? Because our real enemy is the spike protein. And the spike protein attaches to certain receptors in the epithelial cells of the nose, lungs. These are called as the ACE2 receptors. And all our vaccines are aimed at having an antibody against this protein. And even when you take a vaccine, the antibody you test for to see if the vaccine is effective or not is this spike protein. This protein attaches to the receptor, gives entry into the cell, and as viruses do, the central thing is called as the RNA. The red tail of this RNA is what codes for the spike protein. And this is the RNA which goes into the cell, multiplies, uses the machinery of the cell to multiply. And that is how the virus multiplies and spreads throughout the body, again making new viral particles and then infecting the surrounding cells. What we also know is that this virus mutates. And already we have seen 4 variants, the alpha, beta, gamma, and now the delta. And the virus, like all living beings, turns out smarter, tries to become more infectious so that it will survive. So this is in brief about the virus. What you need to know about the virus is how it spreads. And this wonderful poster from the World Health Organization makes it easier for us to understand. The virus spreads less in open spaces. It is less safe, and the virus spreads more in closed spaces. The virus spreads less if you are away from people. It is less safe if you are in proximity to other human beings. So this virus, even though it came from animals, is now being transmitted from humans to humans. And closer you are to lots of humans, more risk for getting it. Third, even if you have to be close to humans, the time you spend close to another person directly determines what your risk of infection is. Lesser time you spend with other people, the safer it is. More time you spend with other people, the less safer it is. So these are certain things which we need to understand so that we can take precaution against this virus. The other thing, the most important thing, as Shweta had mentioned, is COVID appropriate behavior. We need to have social distancing, and it is best to teach this to children. And the best way to teach them to children is not asking them not to play, offer them play or sport which can be played with social distancing. And these are dance, cycling, running, skipping, skating. And I can see there are many mothers in this audience who can at least triple the number of sports that children can play without really having to go close to one another. So social distancing needs to be taught to children along with how to safely do it and play games. Let's come to mask. Everybody talks about masks, but we need to know about masks in little detail. Rajkumar sir has been wonderful, instrumental, C4C is instrumental distributing N95 masks. N95 masks are the gold standard, or what is called the optimal type of masks, because it stops almost all bacteria, dust, pollen, and 95% of the virus particle. Remember, it's not 100%. The surgical mask, which is also used in operation theaters, comes close to it, but it's a little less efficient as compared to the N95 mask, but it costs less. There are other masks like the FFP1 masks, which are less effective, but this also shelters. Then the active carbon mask, not so widely available. The cloth mask, which is purely for ornamental purposes, doesn't stop the virus. And the sponge mask, I don't think we should be using at all. But what is important is from this handout from Times of India, which is actually from the US CDC. And what we need to know is that if you want to protect yourself or your child, or you're going into an area where there's a potential COVID-19 patient, you need to have what is called as double masking. The first mask which you use is the surgical mask. As you can see, this lady has worn, and you need to loop it around your ear so that it fits tightly around. See, the most important thing in the mask is that the well fit. The second point is, if you're using an N95 mask, you don't have to use double masking. So if you have a surgical mask and you want to be extra secure, the problem with the surgical mask is the fit is not good. You can improve the fit by putting a cloth mask on top of the surgical mask, and this is what is called as double masking, and this can be told. Now the question is, how do you know that you have put the mask properly or your child has put the mask properly? Just ask him or you yourself blow. If you feel the air escaping from the sides, that means there is gaps. And when there is gaps, the effectiveness of the mask comes down. So if you are having a COVID-19 patient at home, or you're likely to go to an area where there are likely to be patients, make sure you either double mask or use a well-fitted N95 mask. The third point to fight the corona is sanitizer. There are many in the market and probably all of them are equally good. Rajkumar sir, please note, WHO has put up on its website how to make a cheap sanitizer. All it requires is isopropyl alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and glycerol. And with this, you can make liters and liters, okay? And it probably should be there everywhere, anywhere where people are likely to go, wherever there are footfalls. And my request to you is, when you're distributing masks, maybe a little listing of sanitizer may be a good idea to distribute. It doesn't cost that much. Actually, the container shown in this photo costs more than the sanitizer inside it. So sanitizers should be used. The only problem is because it has alcohol in very small children who put their fingers in their mouth, you need to be a little careful. But for the rest of our slightly older children, sanitizer habit is a good habit to be taught at home where they can. And this will also goes hand in hand with hand washing. If the fingers are soiled with dust or dirt, it's a good idea to clean with clean water and soap before you use the sanitizer. Here are some statistics, not to frighten you, but there are some positives in this. What have we learned from the first and second wave? That many children don't get infected. In the first and second waves, only 8 to 10% have been infected. Of these Of the entire lot of these, only 5 to 7% have required hospitalization. We don't have subgroup data from our country, but from the US, the age group 12 to 17 years has been found to require hospitalization more, and hence the need for probably developing the vaccine. As you already know, vaccine trials in this age group have started. In our country, we have some data from limited data, 10 to 17 years, about 25% of children have required hospitalization, but this is very skewed from small centers. But what we need to know is projections from our own country is that 80 to 85% of the children will be either asymptomatic or have a mild disease. These can be managed at home. Only if the parents are seriously sick in this 80 to 85%, 15% may require care in COVID care centers, especially if the mom is ill and father is ill and nobody to look after the babies and the child is also having COVID but mild. Such babies may require treatment in a pediatric COVID care centers. Actually, if you come down to it, only about 6% of the total will require some kind of healthcare support. 7% will require a little specialized care, may require hospitalization, and only about 2% require ICU care. These are projections from what we have learned from the first and second wave. So mothers, don't get worried. Most of the children will be well, even though they get COVID. What you need to worry about is that along with the children, if there are older people in the family, they may also get affected in the third wave. The talking about third wave and involving children is basically because in countries like Israel, what has happened is the entire adult population has got vaccinated, and that's why selectively the children fell ill. In our country, even though the government is doing a remarkable job of vaccinating lakhs per day, it will be some time before all the adults in the country get vaccinated. So even if there is a third wave, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not sure whether there will be, but the pointers are, all the epidemiologists are saying that there will be a third wave. The likelihood is that if there is a third wave, children and adults will possibly still get affected if and when it comes. When should you get the test done? Now the problem is parents are also frightened to get a test done because the test is a little bit of a problem. You have to put a stick into the nose to correct the nasopharyngeal secretions. It's difficult in small children, but you need to know there are centers like in our own hospital. There are people who can take in pediatric population, tests can be done. A child should be tested if a family member or caregiver has tested positive, or if the child has symptoms, cold, cough, fever, mild fever, or high fever, definitely, body pain, loose stools, or diarrhea. What you need to know is diarrhea and loose stools is probably a much more common problem in children than it is in adults, because the ACE receptors, which I showed you in that diagram, are more distributed in the GI tract of children than in the lungs. This is why children tend to have milder illnesses respiratory wise, but sometimes they can have tummy pain and diarrhea. What are the types of tests? I know I'm talking to a general audience, but in brief, the nucleic acid amplification tests, which check for the RNA of the virus, are the best. RT-PCR is considered the best. There are some others, CRISPR-based and others isothermal, but they are not that popular in our country. But what has come now is called as a rapid antigen test. The rapid antigen test is not as good as the RT-PCR test, but has the advantage of giving the report within 1 hour. This is especially useful in hospital settings. When you have a sick person who's getting admitted, you want to know whether he's infected or non-infected, so that where you can take care, this can be done. But for day-to-day purposes, if you want to check your child, be sure about the result, it's better to do RT-PCR testing. The antibody tests are more for, rather for research purposes, rarely to differentiate whether the person had COVID in the past, not really useful for deciding whether the person has COVID right now. When to do the test? The best time to do the test is when you feel the child is ill, or there, as I told you, family members are ill, and we need to combat what is called as testing hesitancy. People not wanting to test their child, saying that baad mein dekha jaye, because it's important to establish the diagnosis in everybody, including the child. What parents need to know? Even if the child is positive or negative, when it falls ill, the parents need to know that it's important to monitor the child. And what do you monitor in the child? The most simple thing is the temperature. Many of the parents are already expert in using these. You can use a digital thermometer or you can use the forehead thermometer. You probably should not use what are called as those strips, which they put on the forehead. They are pretty inaccurate and they are not very useful. The second thing I will talk a little later is about pulse oximetry. Pulse oximetry, nice finger pulse oximeters are available in our country. Some of them are pretty good and reliable, and you should choose one which is. It is difficult to use in very small children. If a very small child is ill, it's better to bring to hospital because you need a specific pediatric probe for taking. But for a school-going child or older children, this is as good. The adult one can be used as well as in an adult. The third thing probably every mother needs to know is how to count the breathing rate of her child. And this should be done when the child is fast asleep. It is useless to count the breathing rate when the child is yelling or running around. So when the child is fast asleep, count for exactly 1 minute the number of times your baby is breathing. That can give you a lot of information as to how ill or well your child is. Something else which is a very good pointer is urine output. Possible in older children who will tell you themselves. In a younger child, you need to count how many times the child has passed urine in 24 hours, and minimum of 6 times in 24 hours is a good idea. If it is falling less than that, if the urine quantity is less, highly concentrated, that's another sign that things are not going well. Last of all is sensorium. Every mother knows this. If the child is unduly CP, is very lethargic, that's a sure sign of trouble, and you should get in touch with your doctor or bring to the hospital for evaluation. How to use a pulse oximeter? I think this Government of Karnataka poster is a wonderful one. It gives all the steps. The first point is, of course, the hand and the nails should be clean. Step 2, make sure the child has rested for 5 minutes before taking the measurement. Step 3, keep the hand on the chest. Step 4, put the pulse oximeter on the middle or index finger. Step 5, leave the pulse oximeter for at least 1 minute. Don't jump if the reading comes low or high. It takes time. These machines take time to take a good reading. Wait till the reading is stable. If the numbers are jumping, then the reading is not correct. And then record the highest results once it is stable. Not the lowest, the highest results when it's stable. The pulse oximeter works on the principle of arterial waveform. The result it takes at the highest is more accurate than the lowest. 7, each reading you need to take at least 3 times in a day if the child is sick. More often if you feel the child is falling iller or you feel the child is seriously ill, don't keep on taking pulse oximeter, bring the child to the hospital. What is the 6-minute walk test? For older children, this is useful. If the pulse oximetry at rest is more than 94% or above, make the child or person walk non-stop for 6 minutes. It doesn't have to run, just make the child run. Recheck the pulse oximetry, and if it is less than 93 or drops more than 3 or 4%, this child requires evaluation. The next point is how does COVID manifest in children? Most children asymptomatic, no treatment needed. All you need is quarantine at home, 14, 17 days, 20 days. These are some of the international recommendations. These keep changing. Of roughly 14 days, you need to quarantine. Mild disease, mild sore throat, little bit of diarrhea, cough, mild breathing difficulty. Keep at home, give lots of fluids, give ORS if there is diarrhea. You can give paracetamol if there is fever or pain or sore throat. Generally, nothing more is required. Moderate disease, there is breathlessness, cough. If the child is requiring oxygen, this child requires hospitalization. And severe illness, needless to say, you need to go where there is a pediatric ICU. What are the signs of severe COVID? In a child, if you have severe cough, which is disturbing its sleep, child is not able to sleep, or there is breathlessness. And this is the importance of taking the breathing rate in a child when it is asleep. If the baby is less than 2 months, a rate faster than 60 per minute, 2 to 12 months, faster than 50 per minute, 1 to 5 years, faster than 40 per minute, 5 years plus, greater than 30 per minute. Or if the baby is less than 2 months, even if the breathing rate is not more than 60, if the baby is grunting or is not able to feed, this baby needs to be taken to the hospital. I mentioned sensorium. If the baby is drowsy, does not wake up fully, or the tongue looks blue, or if you have a pulse oximeter, as I mentioned, if it is less than 94%, then you should consider taking such a child to the hospital for evaluation. One question, one other system which illness related to COVID is called as MISC. MISC is not really a COVID infection, but it's what the body's immune system goes overboard in fighting the COVID. And this occurs in about 1 to 2 child for every 1 lakh who get the COVID illness. It's a post-COVID illness. The child is not infectious. And this MISC presents with high fever. It presents with sometimes loose motions. It presents with lymph node swelling, sometimes eye conjunctivitis. This is treatable. You need to go to a doctor. It needs a different kind of treatment. And even though this is caused by the COVID infection, the child is not infective, as in the sense the COVID infection has gone. It has the immune system of the child which has gone overboard. Does COVID occur in newborn babies? Unfortunately, COVID is a very, very democratic virus. It can affect right from the moment of birth up to, I think, adulthood. Anytime in your life, it can affect the newborn. There are 2 different presentations in the newborn. But if the mother is COVID positive around the time of delivery, there is a risk to the baby. Not very high, it's about 8% that the baby will also get the COVID infection. Some of these babies may fall ill and may require NICU, but most babies, again in this age group, are asymptomatic and do well and should continue with the mother if the mother is well, along with breastfeeding. What else is important in COVID? The most important aspect of any pandemic is probably the psychological aspects of the pandemic, the psychological effect this COVID pandemic has had in children. What are the effects of home isolation? While initially it must have been great for moms and fathers to have their children with them at home, but prolonged home isolation, no interaction with the outside leads to its own problems, and sometimes tensions at home can run high. It is very important that parents are aware of this and keep the children, make a timetable so that the interaction with the child can be used most positively. The effect of family members falling ill is also very profound, especially if the father and mother have fallen ill, they have to be hospitalized away from the children. I've had patients who turn to be very, very clingy when the parents come back home. There is separation anxiety, and these need to be identified and addressed. Sometimes you require professional help so that the child overcomes this. Separation from the parent who has fallen ill or unfortunately has had an adverse impact is very profound in children. And also we have psychological professionals in our city who are very good at helping children overcome this. And those children who land up in the ICU experience the stress and the pain and the sense of being helpless in the ICU, especially the older and school-age children. They need to be helped to psychologically overcome this. What should you do if someone in the house is sick? And this poster from WHO, I think, speaks it all. Number 1, isolate the sick person, keep the room well ventilated, take care of the sick person. Now, in the case of a child, you need to identify one household member who is either not at high risk or has been vaccinated and who does not interact with much of the people outside, who wears a mask, preferably N95, and stays with the child. Earlier recommendation talked a lot about disinfection of surfaces and using separate dishes and things like that. Normal hygiene probably is enough. The most important thing is probably the mask. And last of all, observe for the danger signs, which I've already told you. If there is a danger sign, then you must contact the care providers, the pediatricians, for help if the child develops it. Coming to the other story. Now, one of these very famous stories which I liked in Panchatantra was about how a fly, a woodpecker, and a frog defeated the elephant. Those of you who don't know the story, I'll just briefly repeat it. an elephant went and knocked against a tree, destroying the nest of the birds, who felt, and the eggs of the birds fell down, and the birds were very distraught. They said, we must take revenge on the elephant. But the point was, these birds are so small, how can they ever overcome and fight an elephant? So what they decided was they would team together, and a fly and a woodpecker and a frog, who were their friends, got together to defeat this elephant. The fly went into the elephant's ear and sang a song which made the elephant feel the melody of the song and close its sides. The minute it closed the eyes, the woodpecker went to the elephant and pecked at its eyes so that it turned blind. And the frog played a trick. It went to a quicksand area instead of the lake and started croaking. The elephant, when it was in pain, wanted some water, rushed to where the frog was croaking, fell into the quicksand and died. The moral of the story, as all of us know, is that even though we are small and Corona and the pandemic seems so frightening, if we get together, we can really overcome this pandemic and come out victorious. The first step in fighting this pandemic is to vaccinate all the adults. What is called as cocooning or ring immunization is important. You want to protect your child. Your children's vaccines are going to take time. They need trials. You need to be sure that we have safe vaccines for children. Till that time, please vaccinate all the adults who come in contact with your child. This is called as cocooning or ring immunization, a very effective strategy which has been used for other illnesses like pertussis, etc. All the adults in your family. In fact, I'm actually requesting Rajkumar sir that we should have a hello tune, which when somebody calls you, don't say hello, please ask them, have you taken your vaccination? Every adult who comes your way, please ask them to take the vaccine, and if they've taken, please congratulate them. Many parents ask me which vaccine to take. As of now, any of the 3 vaccines available in our country, you can take, and whichever you take, all of them give protection. The important thing is to protect yourself against this fight against Corona. What schedule? Each vaccine has been advised different schedules. Please follow whatever your doctor or whichever vaccine you're taking, please follow that schedule. The second thing, which is very important, is healthy nutrition. No illness can be fought on an empty stomach. And especially for children, we need to ensure that we have healthy nutrition, 3 to 4 servings of fruit, 5 servings of vegetables, 5 servings of grains, and dals or proteins, 3 to 4 servings, and dairy, 2 to 3 servings. For anyone who is more than 1.5 years, this holds good. Please ensure that the child gets healthy nutrition at home. This is a wonderful chance to build up your child's nutrition, because without good nutrition, you cannot fight any illness, leave alone Corona. Plenty of exercise. Parents say, yes, these days, what to do, doctor? Lockdown. The only exercise my son or daughter does is on the remote of the TV. That is not acceptable. There are a lot of exercises. Yoga, running, cycling, if you have space, skating, or even simple warm-up exercises as given on the internet would be a good idea for children about 2 years. Less than that, they anyway run around on their own. Actually, they offer free exercise for the mother. Dance is a very good exercise for parents as well as children. And I strongly recommend whatever sort of dance you like, please inculcate that in your children. It's a very good exercise for parents as well as children. Last of all, but very, very important, you should know your enemy and where and when to get help. Karnataka Fights Corona is one such website. I think it is wonderful. The work that C4C is doing is wonderful. There are many other NGOs in our town, and probably many of you, and Rajkumar sir will probably know, will put you in touch. Always keep in touch, know at your fingertips where you can get information in case you need help when you're hit with Corona. And this is really, really useful. I think kudos to the government, kudos to the NGOs who have put this together. I think this is very important. Get more information. And what I message is, what happened with this tech? You need to know Corona if you want to say no Corona. What should the parent do? Number 1, teach the child about Corona appropriate behavior. It's not enough that the adult knows, the child also need to know. And school age children are like sponges. If they find their parents following it, they will also follow it. If you preach it, less chances that they will follow it. So the parents have to do the corona behavior themselves, wear the mask. All children about 2 years can be taught how to wear the mask. They can be taught hand hygiene and social distancing. Know how to monitor your child at home. And last of all, seek help. Should know where to seek help when it's required. And most important, I request all the audience, anyone adult you meet throughout the next 3 months, don't say, hello, how are you? Say, have you got yourself vaccinated? We must get our adult population vaccinated to protect our children. Thank you all for a patient listening. And I hope this topic was of help, because I saw some little friends also watching, and I hoped at least they liked those stories from Panchatantra. Thank you all for a patient listening. Back to you, Shweta.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shenoy. It was such a detailed presentation, and it was so helpful and insightful, right from the Panchatantra stories to tips on how to monitor your child and 6-minute walk test, and what to actually do, when our children get infected. All our minds are definitely a little bit more relaxed now, but now is the time. If you have any questions, please raise them. Raj, I will hand it over to you to please moderate the Q&A session. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Shenoy, for this wonderful presentation and talk, and so much of information that we received. Now, if anybody has questions, I can see some raised hands. What I will do is I will tell out the name. Kindly unmute yourself and ask the question. Siri Venella, unmute yourself. Siri
hello, doctor. Yeah, hello, doctor. I would like to know if masks are required for kids less than 2 years as well. Wearing masks.
Thank you so much. A very pertinent question. Less than 2 years, it is not recommended because there is a smothering risk. About 2 years, you can use a mask.
Thank you so much, doctor.
Yeah, next I can see it says iPhone. I don't know. These are general
Sir,
names. Yeah, go ahead.
What is your name? It's Savita.
Please? Yeah.
This is Savita here.
Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Namaste,
yeah.
Please tell me.
Thanks, doctor, and thanks the C4C group. My question is, I've been hearing from other mothers that there is a flu shot happening everywhere to the kids. So how do we go about it?
See, the flu shot contains this thing against protection against 4 flu viruses.
Okay.
Okay. The flu shot does not protect against COVID.
Okay.
The reasoning behind some people talking about flu shot is the illness caused by flu mimics the illness caused by COVID.
Okay.
So what they are saying is that these days, any child gets fever, cough and cold. Everybody thinks it's COVID.
1 minute. iPhone, can you please mute?
Hello?
Yeah.
If a child has fever, cough and cold or any symptoms, the first thing everybody thinks of is COVID. So what people say is, if you take the flu vaccine, 4 causes of fever, cough and cold get reduced. So if the child does develop after the flu vaccine, then most probably it may be COVID. So that is the sort of reverse logic which is applied to give flu vaccine. My suggestion is discuss with your pediatrician, and if he or she suggests, you could offer it to your child.
Okay, you don't recommend it, huh?
It depends on case to case. Some children, less than 5 years, some children I do recommend. Older children, it depends on case to case. I discuss with the parent and then give it.
Okay, sir. Thanks, doctor.
Okay, next, I think Sonal wants to ask a question. Sonal, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes. Thank you so much, doctor, for your explanation. Just one question I have. Since past 1 year, like we've been taking a lot of care in terms of the things that are coming into the house, grocery, vegetables. We are cleaning everything and or sanitizing everything, and we are taking care that outside slippers doesn't come into the house. But it is taking really toll on mentally also and physically also. It's becoming really challenging, and we are not having maids because of that. what reason? Because everybody says like surfaces, the virus can transfer from surface to surface. I'd want to understand like how much it is relevant, because I've been seeing many people who are not doing anything and still they are fine. I mean, so I don't know where to, put that line of safety. So if you can just highlight few things which we should take care and which is not necessary.
Thank you for a very pertinent question. See, the WHO very clearly has said transmission is through airborne respiratory particles. And I think our emphasis should shift from surfaces to masks. So I think we should insist on good mask protocol and not worry so much about surfaces. So strict disinfection protocols outside of hospitals probably is not required. Normal day-to-day cleanliness or hygiene should be enough. But emphasis is on mask and emphasis is on vaccination. So if groceries are coming to your house, please ask them, have you vaccinated yourself? So don't ask about disinfection. Ask the fellow who brings it, have you disinfected? Has your chowkidar or the security person in your apartment been vaccinated? If not, get him vaccinated, because that is the way to protect your child. Don't worry about groceries. They won't bring virus to your child, but the chowkidar or people working or the person who drives the truck, if he comes and gives it to a chowkidar, they should be vaccinated. So vaccinate all adults would be my choice, and focus on mask, because that is where you can protect yourself and your children.
Thank
and
you.
maids are also fine if they use maids and they are vaccinated, then can we be relaxed and allow them in our house?
Yeah, I should think so. If they're vaccinated and that 1 month period is gone, if they don't have symptoms, I think that should be fine. But it's important to vaccinate all adults. That's the way to protect your children.
Okay, thank you so much, doctor.
Thank you. Sonal, please mute yourself. And next, Rumit. Is that correct, the name? Rumit, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, doctor, and to the organizers for organizing this. I have 2 questions. The first one is it required for children to wear N95 masks, or cloth masks are enough for children? And the second one is there anything specific that should be done or needs to be done to improve the immunity for children?
Thank you very much. Very pertinent questions. The first, I'll answer the second part first. The best thing for immunity is good nutrition. And that is what you need to look into. That's why I emphasized on that. And as far as children are concerned, if there is a COVID person in your family, positive person, then N95 would be required for all the members who are in the house along with that person. If you are able to isolate that person and your child doesn't go there, then the N95 probably may not be required. But it is wiser to teach the child masking behavior, because once they get used to that idea, then if there is a need, then they can do appropriate masking. The difficulty is appropriate masking. See, it's quite a different matter where people hang the mask around their chin, around their, everywhere else, and don't cover the nose and mouth. It is important that nose, mouth cover as well as seal should be taught to children and also followed by adults. Then only the masks work.
Right, doctor. Doctor, supposing we are going from one home, for example, to my parents' place, in that situation, what kind of mask should I make my little one wear?
See, I assume your little one is more than 2 years, in which case...
Yes, she's 5.
And you're not going to go to any other place, and you're not going to interact with other people directly from point A to point B. You can just use a cloth mask. If you expect to go through an area where you're likely to have crowds, or there may be, if you're going through public transport, then it may be better to have double masking or an N95 mask if possible.
Okay. So for example, we pass through a lift which is used by other people. So that's all right, is it? I mean, if we use a normal mask, we're using a area which is being used by other people, outsiders as well. So that in that situation?
Good question. Very difficult to answer. Depends on how many people are positive and things like that. See, because if you have a cloth mask, it does not filter out the viruses. Only the surgical and the N95 masks filter out the viruses to some extent. So that is why if there's a likelihood of somebody having the infection has gone through, the virus is airborne, then a cloth mask is not adequate. In general, if there's nobody who's ill and there is a common area where you're using it, cloth mask should be adequate. But if it is an area where there are people who have had the infection, you probably should consider either double masking or N95 masking. And double masking and N95 masking is essential if a family member has got the virus infection.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Shenoy, it's 4:26 now. I hope you can give some more time because there are quite a few people wanting to ask questions. I know we started late today. Can you spare some more time for a few more questions?
Yes, no problem. Another 15 minutes is all right.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So can I ask Bonnie, who is Bonnie? Please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for the very nice session. Very informative it was. My question is actually, there is a talk about the third wave, and you also mentioned in your presentation. And there is a talk about reopening of schools, right? I think Telangana is opening, and now the Bangalore, the experts are also recommending reopening of schools. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, isn't it counter this thing for reopening schools at this point in time, especially when the third wave is around the corner? Like,
very, very relevant question. The opening of schools is a complex question, and what the experts feel is it should be discussed between the school authorities, the parents, and the education authorities, and based on the positivity rate in the area, all these have to be taken into account before opening schools. I think the government is doing the right thing. It is taking all the people into confidence, and the decision probably will be decentralized is what I'm told. But I don't think anybody will open schools in a hurry, and definitely without consulting parents, it's a definite no-no. All their opinions need to be taken, as well as what is the actual data from the area where the school is being opened. What is the positivity rate? Things like that need to be considered. So it's a very complex question. I think the government is probably handling it as a area-wise this thing. And I think whatever decision they take will be based on all the inputs given by all these various stakeholders.
Dr. Shenoy, apart from hand raises, we have a few comments in the chat section. I'll just go run through that. There are plenty of comments saying thank you for a superb presentation and all that. Can we give general flu vaccination? I think you already answered that, right?
Yeah.
From Nandini. Then Rumit's question is answered. And then can you share this PPT?
I have no problem.
Okay, great.
I don't know how you can do it, but anyway, I leave that to Rajkumar. You can.
Okay, we'll see how to. We'll probably put my mail ID there, and then we'll take it forward. Are there N95 masks available for children? This is from HEDE. N95 masks.
I'm not sure whether they're specifically for children, but smaller size masks I have seen in the market. There are, but specifically I don't see any N95s being marketed as for children.
I think
I may be wrong.
I think the question is more to do with the size, fitting
Exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Supriya David asks, do face shields offer protection comparable to masks?
See, in the earlier part of the epidemic, it was recommended in many places, but now we know that mask is the crucial thing. We do use face shields when we are in the hospital because we are afraid of splashes and while doing procedures and all that. But in general, I don't think a face shield offers much more to a well-fitting mask. The literature everywhere suggests that the properly fitting mask is your key to fighting the corona.
Okay. There is Yashu Reddy's question. Can the child be reinfected again with virus if the child was tested positive earlier?
As of the, there is emerging information because the virus keeps mutating. there is a definite possibility of reinfection for adults as well as children. That is why, as for adults, even though they have been infected, there is a recommendation that they should undergo vaccination.
Okay. Aditi, is it safe to do steam inhalation for the children?
Actually, with the epidemic of mucormycosis, which is that black fungus, there is a suggestion from a very senior ENT surgeon in the city that the excessive steam inhalation predisposes for it. So I think you should be careful whenever you're doing such things. So I would say, as of now, there is no current role.
Okay. There's a question from somebody whose name starts with MA. That's all I know. Doctor, please suggest any immunity booster syrup till pediatric vaccine comes in.
Good nutrition, like Mama Made, is the best immunity booster that I can think of. I request all the mothers in the audience to please focus on good home cooked food, which has lots of vegetables, fruits, small portions of dairy, and good amounts of protein.
Neha Singh, if a child has been tested positive, how long is he protected from getting infected again from the first infection? What is the protection that is?
No, that is what is not very clear, because this virus mutates. There is always a chance of reinfection. So I would say that even the child has been infected, when the vaccine does, please take it. Until that time, please take protection, because we don't want the child to be infected again.
Yeah. There's a supplementary question from Tanmaya Anand, but can the virus enter from the eyes? We thought face shield is good for that, to protect the eyes.
The evidence is that there may be a small risk, but the maximum risk is from droplets entering the nose and mouth. So that's why I said in hospital circumstances where the patients are at close quarters, we do use the face shield. But I assume that your question is when you're going out in, say, hopefully not a crowded locality, then the face shield really is not as important as the mask.
From SR, for flight travel, what kind of protection should be sufficient for children and teenagers?
Again, see, flight is considered a crowded place because of two reasons. One is proximity, and second is air conditioning, because that recirculates the air. I'm assuming, of course, that you're not chartering the flight.
Yeah.
So if you have any public transport where there is air conditioning or proximity of less than 6 feet, there is a risk, and the way around it is good masking technique.
From Shikha S. Gaur, if the person gets infected, I think she means a child, after how many days can they go for the vaccine? But yeah, okay, that's the question.
The child, obviously, the vaccine hasn't come. For an adult, they are right now saying 90 days, 90. That is the current recommendation, but these things change. Best is to see the Government of India website, which actually has very good information about vaccination.
From Neha, can kids go for walks in the area with parents?
Yes, as long as you avoid other adults.
Okay. I can see a few hands raised. Satya's iPad, can you please unmute yourself? Satya's iPad. Satya's iPad. Okay, Manish Bansal, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, sir, I have a question regarding kids when they are doing some physical activity, like, sports activity while playing football or basketball or going for a long run. Should they be wearing masks while doing such activities?
See, the vigorous physical activities with mask are difficult, and sometimes they can lead to buildup of carbon dioxide. So in general, in open spaces, when they are playing with social distancing, it should not really be a problem to do without mask.
What protection for a 1-year-old? Sita Lakshmi is asking, sir.
For a 1-year-old, masking is not going to be possible. So the best thing is to keep the baby away from adults. I don't think there is any, and good nutrition. The 1-year-old should be taking good complementary feeding. Breastfeeding can continue in the night, but daytime you should give good balanced diet.
Kranti Tyagarajan, I think, is it required to wear mask while running or jogging? I think you answered that, but if you want to,
yeah.
Please.
Especially N95 mask, sometimes there can be buildup of carbon dioxide, so may not be a great idea. Maybe just a cloth mask or no mask if you are in open air surroundings may be fine. As long as you avoid other people, there is no risk of getting COVID.
A couple of people have asked, can a vaccinated person be a carrier?
See, the vaccinated people are known to get infection and be mostly asymptomatic. So in that sense, they can have the infection. Carrier meaning carrier as far as in the sense have the virus and not suffer from it kind of thing is called asymptomatic infection, but that lasts for about 14 days or so. But the answer is yes, even after being vaccinated, you need to protect yourself because you can still have the virus even though you generally don't have a severe illness.
Okay, one very popular thing going around, apart from good nutrition, this is from Shantini. Is it required to take Kada daily?
I have no idea about it. It's an Ayurvedic preparation.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Then Anija is asking, is there added complication with COVID for kids who have asthma?
As of now, that has not come out. It was initially anticipated that maybe it may, but it has not as yet come out. But in general, children with any kind of chronic lung condition have to be more careful and have to take all the precautions to avoid getting COVID.
Okay. Should kids take Zincovit? Neha is asking.
Initially in the pandemic, there were suggestions that zinc supplementation prevents. But as of now, that has not been borne out. So there's no real benefit. Better is to again focus on a balanced, good diet.
Okay. Arvind, would you like to unmute yourself and ask?
First wave ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ immunity ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. So below 10 years ಗೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ immunity ಯಾವ ತರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್?
ನೋಡಿ, ಅದು ಮೊದಲನೇ ವೇವ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ BCG ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಕೊರೋನಾ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ವೇವ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲೂ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಇಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಅಷ್ಟು ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ACE ರಿಸೆಪ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಶ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಸಿವಿಯರ್ ಕಾಯಿಲೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ವೇವ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ದೊಡ್ಡವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಂದಷ್ಟು. ಬಟ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಪ್ರಪೋರ್ಷನ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದೊಡ್ಡವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಂದಷ್ಟು ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಮೈಲ್ಡರ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಬರ್ದೇ ಇರಲ್ಲ.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Somebody with the name Lenovo, you are sharing your screen. Can you please take out that screen? Lenovo. I think Manish wants to ask one more question. Go ahead, Manish.
Yes. So as you said, while doing vigorous physical activity, wearing a mask can lead to buildup of carbon dioxide. But many gated communities, they insist on wearing a mask while doing any physical activity or while you're, in the common area. So can you suggest any alternative in that case?
If I heard you right, you are asking whether during exercise should we wear a mask. So my suggestion is not to, if you have to do exercise with a mask, probably use a cloth mask rather than N95 tight fitting mask. That is what I would suggest. I'm not sure why the gated community is insisting on masking if the activity is with social distance. But obviously, if the activity or game is being played without social distancing, then that's a bit dangerous, because then you will have to wear a tight-fitting N95 mask or double masking, and then your chances of getting, carbon dioxide retention would be more.
Thank you, sir.
So there is a question. We'll take last two questions. It's 4:42. Pavitra, my daughter is 1.5 years planning to stop breastfeeding, but based on situation, do I need to continue breastfeeding? And how to protect the kids of 1.5 years? Can she wear mask?
You answered the question yourself. Continue breastfeeding till 2 years. That's the only way to protect small babies. Especially at night, you can continue breastfeeding. Daytime, my suggestion is to give a balanced diet. And unfortunately, less than 2 years, using a mask is associated with a risk of smothering. So we don't recommend it.
Supriya David has one more question. Any recent data on whether pets can carry the virus?
See, the pets, that dogs get a different kind of coronavirus, which is not transmitted to humans. So that is different, and this is different.
Okay. Satya's iPad, now he's ready, I think. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, doctor.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes, please.
Yes. Thanks a lot, doctor. It was a wonderful presentation. I think you've pretty much covered everything, but there's just one concern I have. With all the online classes going on and the kind of exposure that kids have to gadgets, I'm sure in the long run, there is a negative, kind of impact on their health. Is there anything, of course, the older kids, there's no way that we could kind of stop this. Even their extracurriculars are kind of happening online. Is there anything that we could do to kind of boost their eye health or keep their sleep pattern in place, etc.? Anything at all that could help this, during the pandemic?
Excellent question. Two things which I stress on is, number one is 1 hour of regular exercise every day. So that is number one. And the second is in the nutrition chart, I had shown vegetables. The more color your vegetables have, the better is the eye health. So please ensure that you are giving vegetables of at least 2 or 3 colors every day, and that helps eye health. Number 3 is what you really hinted at, is what does excessive screen exposure do to the child? One of the things which it does is it creates it's not just the eyes, but it also creates behavioral problems and things like that. So what I suggest is that you restrict the screen time beyond the absolutely essential learning times.
Okay.
So when there is no class, that time should be spent in doing other activities like drawing, painting, singing, dancing, exercise. So if you can draw out that and encourage your child to do those activities, then you'll have a balanced day. Because in this day and age, as somebody else mentioned, school will probably continue online or hybrid or whatever. So it is important that you regulate the screen time and use the extra time doing these activities, which will also help your child.
Dr.
Thanks
Shenoy,
a lot.
Thank you. Dr. Shenoy, if you don't mind, it's 4:45. There are still a few questions. Can we have a quick round, very quick questions, very quick answers, if you don't mind? Is it safe to take child to dentist in this scenario?
It depends on the dental clinic, and most dental clinics have made facilities for social distancing, staggered the appointments and things like that. So you could do inquire with your dentist, make sure that arrangements are made, and then go.
Can COVID positive mother breastfeed?
She must. That's the only way to protect the baby. And we recommend using a mask in the mother and using hand hygiene, holding the baby and breastfeeding.
Okay. Is it recommended for pregnant women and breastfeeding moms to get COVID vaccination?
Breastfeeding moms definitely should take COVID vaccination. And pregnant moms, some of the international agencies like the American one have recommended. Our government and our agencies, ICMR, are looking at it. And hopefully within the next couple of days or weeks, we'll have a recommendation about pregnant women, because the safety of our vaccines in pregnant women, I think they're looking into it.
I don't have words to thank you, sir, because initially we lost half an hour and you extended the program, your time. Thank you so much. Plenty of questions answered today. It's been wonderful. And I request Shweta to go ahead and do the formalities of thanking everyone. We'll close for the day.
That was such a fantastic session, and it was so informative. As a young mother, I can say that I had so many concerns about COVID-19 and children, and I feel so much more relaxed after this. And I have to earnestly thank you on behalf of myself and C4C and everybody who attended the session for taking so much time out for all of us, so patiently answering all our questions and helping us, be more prepared for what is ahead of us. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Shenoy. And on behalf of C4C, on behalf of Raj and C4C, I also want to thank all the participants for waiting through the initial 20 minutes and asking such fantastic questions. It made it such a holistic presentation. We haven't missed anything, I think. And thank you all for having participated. And take good care of yourselves. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please do the COVID-19 protocol. Please follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.